To kickstart, it'd be great to hear from you what you consider to be the most significant business change that you've seen in your business area over the last 2 to 3 years.
I think the last 2 to 3 years I was in integration and then into the trading partner role, and I think our new CEO, which is Emma, has got a big appetite for external benchmarking. So I think in finance in particular, we've gone through a journey to both support the business but also look at ourselves in how do we benchmark not just the cost of finance, but the activities that finance gets involved in. Where do we get the best investment of people, resources in terms of payback for the business. So I think there was a huge focus on external benchmarking and continuing, and I'm sure we'll talk to that a little bit as well. I think another area that we spent quite a lot of focus on as we have been going through transformation and a search program of rollout is to now really start focusing, to Will's point, on what is the benefit. What are we going to get out of this program? How are we going to make the most of the investment? GSK spent just short of £1 billion on the search program. So how do we get the best benefit out of that? We've replaced our corporate finance systems, both our consolidation system and our internal profit tracking system, which was quite a painful journey for most people in finance, but it was with that ending goal in mind that once we all have the majority of our markets, we now have about 95% of GSK turnover on the same platform, we can really start leveraging the benefit of having good quality information at hand to help us make the decisions. And that's been 2 of the main focuses.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think my experience over the last 2 or 3 years has really been in the consumer business, and probably talked to that the most readily. But I think the big changes there have really been around how the consumer goes on the shopper journey in terms of, using online to find information, to self-diagnose, to evaluate different treatment options, placing much more reliance on social networks, whether that's bloggers or other networks that's part of, in influencing their decision, and not just using what would typically have been your traditional experts, so that's dentists, pharmacists, doctors. And I think the challenge that gives finance is how do we evolve to be able to measure our capability in those areas so that we can challenge the business to make the right decisions around how we deploy our resource. And that's been such a fast-moving, competitive area that I think it's been a really big area where we've needed to grow as a finance function and develop new capabilities so that we can keep up with our commercial colleagues.
Thanks, Mark. I'm sort of picking up probably on what both of you said. I'll sort of reference pharma and then finance because that covers the last 2 or 3 years for me. The new CEO, Emma, brought in a lot more focus and prioritisation as a mindset for us, and focusing the business around innovation, performance and trust as our 3 strategic pillars, and actually sort of defining how we should measure that as well. So not leaving it open to interpretation. This is really what we mean by innovation, this is what we mean by performance, and this is what we mean by trust. And giving that clarity, it has allowed the leadership of the organisation at different layers to be much more focused in terms of where we invest our resources. With such a broad business, with so many different pillars to it in terms of consumer, vaccines, pharma, we have these, the ability to spread ourselves very thinly across a huge amount of geography and an opportunity is a risk to us, and potentially means that we don't focus on where we can really drive the most value for GSK's patients, its consumers, and our shareholders as well. So I've seen a lot more focus on actually where do we want to put our resources, and we only have a finite amount. So the reality is, where are we going to deprioritise and where are we going to prioritise as well. So I've seen the commercial organisations go on that journey. I think within finance, we have to hold ourselves to account to external benchmarks as much as we hold all the other parts of the business to account for how they benchmark externally. And when we look at ourselves, we have all of the big things that we need to be an incredibly successful and modern finance organisation, but we're not quite there yet. So having the great foundations, having the building blocks, gives you the right components. What's the blueprint that we need to follow to make sure that we finish that journey and release all of that value that we can create at the right efficiency points as well versus our benchmarks. And I think we're sort of doing that around what can we stop, what can we simplify, what can we standardise? And each are equally important. And you know, quite often we just carry on repeating the same processes over and over again because at one point in time we needed them. And actually, it's a good point in time to actually stop and say, well, what do we really need to do? What is this process trying to drive? And therefore, how can we simplify it to make it done in the most efficient way possible? I think it's standardisation as well. Given the spread that we have, given the size of GSK, you know, when we look around, the potential for us to do things in many, many different ways is huge. The challenge is if we do that, our ability to modernise them and for them to maintain credibility and to keep up with the pace of change that exists in the external world is challenging. So the more that we can bring together and standardise, the better we can leverage new technology, new platforms, new ways of working that are going to benefit everybody involved in that process, while sacrificing maybe some of that individuality that people feel that they want to bring when it gets down to it.